the SM Media Podcast Network.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the Ref's View, part of the SM Media Podcast Network. I'm Scott McPike. It's a pleasure to be your host as always. We don't have Steve. Hopefully we'll have Steve back next week, but it's always a pleasure to be joined by Des Roach.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here. At least one of us are. There's somebody still jet lagged on his way back from Vegas.
Fair enough, I suppose. But we're not going to it's not going to be a traditional show because it's Scottish Cup weekend, and at the time of recording, not a lot's happened. The only decision I can think of that we've already put something out on was the yellow card given to Triantis in the Hibs game against Ayr. I don't know what you thought. I thought it was a really good tackle. Like
There's nothing in it for me.
it's not a red anyway.
It's not even a yellow. It's a right good, robust challenge.
Yeah.
If you're taking that out of the game, then come on. I thought it was a good game.
Do you think people get caught up in the speed of tackles? Because that's what I've always thought. See when you watch that live, it is very, very fast, and obviously referees only see it in that speed. But when you watch it back and kind of slowed down, it gets the ball. It's probably as good as a tackle as you can get.
No, for me, I mean, Kevin was pretty close to it, so he's one there to judge and see the ferocity, the velocity of it. But I can't see anything wrong with that challenge whatsoever. I mean, what do we always want? We want blood and thunder games, and that was a good challenge. And it's actually put Triantis under a lot of pressure for the rest of the game.
Yeah, he's a good player. I like him as well. He's good in the ball. We are going to assess Willie Collum's VAR review, which came out on Friday, I think, just after we had finished recording. I think it came out Thursday. But as always, it gets a lot of people talking. There's a lot of decisions in here that we've had a review on, and they've been slightly contradicted. Some of them supported a wee bit. But I've got on here 9 decisions that Willie Collum talks about that I want to analyse with you today. And I don't think there's as good a place to start as the one between Ross County and Celtic that we got a fair bit of stick about this for our kind of thoughts on it. We were of the opinion that there should have been some sort of card. We both said red was a perfectly kind of plausible solution. I think we'd have both been happy with a yellow. Willie says on his review, if you watch it back, that it's not an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. I'm going to just leave that word there, obvious goal-scoring opportunity, because it comes up again in the next one we'll talk about. And before, obviously, we've taken a bit of flack for this with both of us. Willie Collum's kind of saying that we're wrong, but he's also saying something as well that I thought was quite interesting, that he says, many people will disagree with me. That's what this is about. But the amount of people who've been on and said, because Willie Collum said that this isn't a red card, yous are wrong. He's basically also said there's an open opinion here. I don't like his explanation, though, of what the UEFA rules. I know you're kind of annoyed about that as well.
I remember a game that Willie done. It was Rangers Aberdeen, and we were at a training meeting on a Sunday afternoon up in Stirling, and Willie hadn't sent off. It was one of the teams, and he clung on to that word obvious, and he didn't give it. And I'm sorry, that is an obvious goal scoring opportunity. That ball's coming in. If Alistair Johnson doesn't make contact with the Ross County player, what's going to happen? Not what's going to happen. What's potentially going to happen?
Yes.
To me, that is obvious. So, no, I'm very sorry, Willie, but I completely disagree with you.
And look, that's the thing. But what Willie's clanging on to there is that there's no way of knowing if he's going to get a connection on it because Alistair Johnson fouled him. Well, surely that is an obvious goal-scoring opportunity because,
if Alistair Johnson doesn't foul him?
That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. That's more. I really don't get what he's talking about. The other thing that really annoyed me with this, when you listen to the VAR audio, is The referee confirms the penalty. I can't remember who the referee is. I do apologise.
It was Matthew McDermott.
It was Matthew McDermott. He says something very interesting, and I'm just going verbatim here, but he confirms the penalty, and then right after that, you hear the VAR go, "We're checking the attacking phase of play." He confirms the penalty to whoever. I think it must be a player, I'd imagine, or it's a linesman, whoever it is. He confirms the penalty, and then after that, the APP. What if the APP shows an offside? Because that's what they were checking. They were checking a potential offside. Why is he confirming?
They weren't checking the penalty.
Why is he confirming a penalty? Why is he saying to somebody on the pitch it's a penalty, but he doesn't say anything about checking the APP? That's in his ear. That annoys me. Just wee things like that just annoy me, because we need, like, I think there's certain games where communication is spot on, but this to me is an absolute unnecessary shambles of you're confirming a penalty to a player or whoever it is on the park while you know that there's a potential check to disallow this penalty. It's wee things like that, just pernickety stuff that I think makes us look like a farce.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Don't disagree at all. I think Matthew McDermott had a pretty much clear and unobstructed view.
Mm-hmm.
He can make that decision on his own. You don't need to go if it was you or me or Steve or anybody. You make a decision on the foul that you see. All you do is you just go back to confirm: is that ball still in play? Is it offside? See if it's not offside, the ball's in play.
Yeah,
it's a penalty kick. It's a red card.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think though there's enough. Like, it's kind of, Willie was kind of saying, we're the rules say one thing, but there's open to disagreement. I think this is still quite a dubious decision. I don't think it's set in stone like some of the other ones are after you hear the VAR and after you hear Willie's explanation. I don't think this is one that can be just like forgotten about. I think this is something that is very interesting, but it leads on to the next one we're going to talk about, Aberdeen St Mirren. There's an incident where the St Mirren defender handles the ball, and if he doesn't handle the ball, it looks to me like the St Mirren player's through in goal. Now, there's a free kick given, there's no yellow card. Yeah, it's a free kick. Wally says it's not a red card because it's not an obvious goal scoring opportunity. He says the word again, the word here is obvious.
Yeah.
Are we basically saying that the only obvious goal scoring opportunity is if someone's through and goal and they get fouled in the back? Because that to me, like, what is an obvious goal scoring opportunity then if you're going by that explanation? Like,
yeah, well, an obvious goal scoring opportunity is obviously variable on whoever's refereeing it, and you and I can have different opinions on that, and Willie can have different opinions on it. I would have thought in the Aberdeen St Mirren game, I'm okay with a yellow card there because he has struck his hand. I still think there was too much to do for the St Mirren attacker to be an obvious goal scoring opportunity.
Yeah.
If you're standing 10 yards from goal with a goalkeeper right in front of you, then that's an obvious opportunity. I'm okay with the yellow for that one. But to not give anything, then that's not right.
That's what I'm leading to the Johnson thing as well. That's why I think these two are quite similar to look at, because they give a free kick or a penalty for either decision, but they don't give a caution. Like, yeah. I don't think we're going to lose sleep if that Johnson one isn't a red card, but for it to be not given at all was any sort of yellow, and it's the same here. I just don't get
that's
it.
Wrong.
That's what I'm annoyed about.
Yeah, no, that's wrong, because a foul has been committed. Let's be honest. That has happened, so it has to be sanctioned by a caution. But no, I'm just like you, a wee bit baffled by it, and I don't know how Willie can try and spin
it. He's fairly adamant about this one, and I think it's probably fair enough with the Celtic Kilmarnock, the one the Scottish Cup. He goes on very clearly to praise Nick Walsh for his way of dealing with it, probably because he's going to hammer him later on. Is probably why he does that. But the referee gives a goal. If you watch it back, the Kilmarnock player handles the ball. It doesn't look a deliberate action. It looks as if it just hits off his hand, and then it ends up going in the net through another Kilmarnock player. Willie says this is a straightforward decision. I kind of go along with it. You've got to give the goal because it's not a deliberate handball, and I think this is one of the ones in the whole VAR review that I'm happy with. I think that's probably explained well.
Yeah, I'm okay with that as well. Yeah, it's one of these things that happen during the game, so it's not deliberate. It just happened. So, and you're going to get that in a game. You've got 90 minutes of competitive guys running about. The
Yeah.
ball's going to bobble. The ball's going to bounce. Yeah, I've got no issues with that one whatsoever. Probably the only one I'll give Willie one for that.
Yeah, I mean the next one as well. I would praise the VAR communication for this because I think it's really well done. The Ross County Hibs with the handball from Nicky Cadden. The one thing that I was going to get your thoughts on, the one thing Willie's happy with on this is they don't use a still image for the first view of it, which I think is something that I don't get why that is used. It's used a few times in this and it's been used in past VAR reviews. They use I think they use the kind of clearest video angle possible and then kind of look back through the other ones to see if there's any way of doubting it, which I think is probably the way to go. You have to look at it first of all and say, right, why is that been given? Why is that not been given? And work it back from there. One thing that's praised on here is the communication between the VAR and the referee because it is pretty clear. It's pretty quick in terms of coming to the right decision, I think, which is a Ross County penalty.
Yeah, no, I think that was really, really well dealt with. Really well dealt with. Nobody at the time was looking for it.
No,
Nobody from Ross
no.
County, nobody from Ross County, nobody from anyone looked at it. And I quite rightly agree with you. If you make a still of anything, I mean, you could make a red card for any challenge.
Yes.
But it's quite clear that Cadden has put his hand out. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he meant it.
Yeah.
I think it's reactional, and it's just a human impulse in what he's done. And he stuck his right hand out, and it's came. But again, it's very easy to criticise. So let's give them praise. I think that was the correct decision. It was really good the way they spoke over the VR communication. They explained exactly what it was. They got the referee across, explained what they seen, let him deal with it, and he made the final decision. So yeah, no, that is the correct use of VAR.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is the one. That's in the Celtic Commander one. I'm like, yeah, VAR's got that spot on. Wally explains it well. The next one is the one that everybody was waiting on finding out what the VAR audio was, and it actually we've posted about it. It's worse than we thought it was. We're obviously talking about the Diamandi red card for Rangers at Dundee United. We have made our views perfectly clear on this. I'm quite happy to again. Let's just start with this. When you first heard the VAR audio, was it as bad as you thought it would be, or was it worse?
It was worse.
Why?
It was worse. It was worse because I'm going to try and be professional here.
Yeah, and we should say this we will probably hammer somebody here.
Right. So Nick has seen what he thought he seen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which he's entitled to do. That's his opinion. Okay. Don Robertson, who's probably, I would now say he's jumped above Nick after this incident. He's
Yes,
probably our best referee.
definitely.
Don has given him clear instructions in his mind. Nick, I think you need to rewatch this and have a look at it. Nick's came across, he's looked at it. We didn't see the angles that was given. We've now seen it. We've now heard the clear communication, very articulate, very
articulate. Yeah.
Yep. No nonsense, nothing around him. The Don is the VAR, and the AVAR have both said to Nick, that's not a red card.
Yes.
And you quite clearly hear Nick saying, no, you don't think he slapped him. I'm sure that was the words.
Yeah, it was like, you don't think it's violent conduct, I think is what he says.
Yeah.
I think.
And in my opinion, Nick has made his mind up.
Yes.
And he says he's off. And he sent him off. Now, I'm not a Celtic fan, I'm not a Rangers fan, I'm not a Dundee United fan, I'm a Rangers fan. I'm a football fan. No person in the world is expecting a red card from there. But the fact that two very experienced and top class officials are telling you, is there not a seed of doubt there that you should look at it? Because
what about the whole push as well? That kind of goes. It went on.
That goes unmissed.
It goes completely unmissed.
Yeah. So at that moment in time, see if he'd given a yellow card to each player for petulant behaviour.
Probably been okay with it.
Nobody would bother.
Nah.
Holt's off.
Yeah.
Holt was off.
And
Holt's walked away. But the biggest thing for me is Nick's mind was made up. He wasn't changing it. Now, I know people have said arrogance and etc. I'm not using that. I would say he was very steadfast and stoic in his mind.
Doesn't get his own way.
That's what's coming. I'm not changing my mind. That's what's coming. But surely if you're getting advice when people trying to throw you a lifeline here and say, do you know what, you can change it here.
The annoying thing, the really annoying thing to me is, and nobody's kind of really said this, but it's something that's been bugging me since I've seen the VR. And like you, I was absolutely horrified. I wasn't expecting it to be as bad as it was. He asks for an angle, and then they say that's the only angle we've got, and then within, it's not even a second, he goes, I'm sending him off.
Yeah.
He asks for another angle. Now, if you're asking for another angle, you're either looking for two things. You're either looking for that angle to prove you right, which I think he is, which he isn't getting that, or you're wanting another look at it from a different angle because you want to see it a different way, which I'm okay with. But to then get told you're not getting that angle and then just go there when you've been told by the two people who are making the decision who have kind of given you advice. Nick Walsh can make his own decision here and he's clearly stuck to it. I think out of arrogance, and I've said that, I think it is, I'm not changing my mind here. I think it is the classic saying, don't back down, double down. I think there's no way you're changing his mind because he's got it in his head. That's a red card. That's my opinion. The problem I've got with it though is what VAR's brought in for is to give the referees help, and he basically just ignores that.
He did. And that's what I said. He's dug his own grave.
When you say dug his own grave, though, and I'm not advocating if you make a mistake, you get demoted for a couple of games, then you're back up. There needs to be serious repercussions here. There needs to be. There won't be. There needs to be, though.
There won't be.
My problem with this is, and again, I'm not on here. I've spent a lot of time trying to give referees benefit of the doubt, try to say that they're put in a very difficult position by how ridiculous at times the kind of coverage is up here in terms of referees. But in this regard, if you're a Rangers fan, when you hear Nick Walsh is going to be covering a Rangers game, can you have the level of trust in him?
Yeah, I would like to, because I'd like to think that, and as you know,
can you see why people are asking that question?
Listen, I can certainly see it. I can certainly see why people would have doubts around it. But from Stephen I's perspective, and obviously you know Stephen I, you don't go into a game with any preconceived ideas.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And that. So yes, I think Rangers fans can trust him to do the best job of his abilities. That decision, he got it wrong. Okay, right? We all make it wrong. We all get decisions wrong. The bit for me is that he just never took upon the advice that he was given. And it was very, very clear and obvious that the two people giving him that advice were in entirely different opinions of him.
I think it's as bad an audio as you'll hear, for the simple reason that the one thing people have thrown at VAR is it takes ages to come to decisions, but in this regard, they are trying. The VAR who are put in, they feel that the on-field referee, has made a wrong decision, and they are trying every possible way to correct that decision, and the referee is just completely shutting them off.
But again, that's the referee's decision, because he is the sole arbiter. He is the one that can make the final decision. So whether you like it, whether you don't, Nick had the ultimate say in it. I don't think he was correct, and I've made our comments obviously very, very public. I just think he got it entirely wrong.
Right. In terms of the kind of next one that was a Rangers Aberdeen game, this one I thought was very interesting. It was the potential red card for Leighton Clarkson that was given as a yellow card. The reason I found this interesting was because Willie Collum, this was a Wednesday night game, Willie Collum said he was in the VAR room for this incident, and he said at first glance he thought this was a red card. And then he proceeds to say, after seeing it several different times from several different angles, he changes his mind and it's a yellow card. I just thought that was interesting because that's another example of how VAR can have a positive impact. We can argue whether it's a yellow card or a red card. I just thought it was interesting how many, like, having a different look at it changes somebody's mind, which is probably what VAR is there for and good for, because the referee's got one angle to look at it. He doesn't think it's a red, or he would give it. But I'm just thinking, if a referee did give that as a red card, I don't think VAR intervenes with that, because you can have a mixed reaction to that. You can have you could put 10 people in a room. I think 5 would say red, 5 would say yellow. I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It was quite interesting. Willie saying at first viewing, I thought it was a red, but then I seen different angles. That's why VAR's there.
Yes,
isn't it? That's exactly why VAR's there.
100%, yeah.
To give the referee that alternative view. I've got to admit, when I first seen it, I thought, oh, that looks a bit nasty.
It was above, yeah.
Yeah, it looks a bit nasty. Then when you see it, he's not went with the studs, he's went with an open foot, he's above the ankle. For me, on review, I'm quite happy with a yellow card. It just shows fans that not every decision is black and white. Now, if you'd taken this back 5-6 years ago before VAR, Clarkson would have been off the pitch and Aberdeen would be down to 10 men.
Yeah.
So this is where showing the technology does work, and it's shown when it can work for the right reasons. Yeah, it didn't look great, but there was no malice, there was no intent. It was just one of those challenges where he's mistimed it. He's probably very fortunate he went with the side of his boot, but what are we to say about that? We can only comment on what we see. So yes, I'm okay with a yellow card for that.
I'm okay with a yellow card. Like, I can see people saying if potentially a red if he catches him a different area. I can see that, but I just thought it was interesting. Willie said in first glance it was a red card, and then looking at it, I've seen at different angles. It's a yellow, and I'm like, fine. That's kind of what
exactly
VAR is.
Exactly what VAR's there for.
The next one is the Hearts Kilmarnock one that got a lot of interest. It also earned Derek McInnes an apology from Willie Collum before this. Now, before I get into this, and if you want to watch it back, go and look at the VAR review and listen to the audio for this. This is John Beaton, it's the referee. The first instance, before we get into talking about the overall decision, please tell me referees aren't as childish as that when they're wrong after a decision. He says something along the lines of, you gambled and lost or something. It must be to the Kilmarnock defender. During the foul, while the ball's in the air, he says something like that, and then proceeds, once the foul or not foul has been made, he's rolling like that. Focus in the game instead of having a conversation with the player who thinks he's been fouled. Yeah, like, that to me was ridiculous. Like, I hope, please tell me that doesn't happen all the time.
Well, obviously not being involved in VAR, and
no, that's is John Beaton during the game.
No, I know. But saying not being involved in VAR, when Steve and I were refereeing, we were mic'd up. Yeah. And I used to always say, the less you can talk to me, the better.
Yes.
Only talk to me when there's something that I need to know.
Yeah.
Right. So straight away, it was Andrew Dallas, right, who was a VAR.
Yeah.
Right. The amount of communication going through John Beaton's head at that moment in time was ridiculous, because the game is live. There's an attacking phase of play going on there. Right. Forget what you missed. Right. Forget what you missed. He's shouting, "Well done, Roomy." David Room, who's talking to, who's the assistant. Not for me, not for me. Andrew, shut up. Let John get on with his job. It was, I think that's probably one of the worst clips that I've heard.
The communication
was dreadful. Where can John actually have a bit of space in his head to go, I've analysed that situation, move on, analyse that situation, move on, analyse that situation, move on.
That leads to an interesting thought I've got, though, because you know as well as I do, like, if you're in a high pressure situation and you are frantically communicating, it's very hard for you to make a split decision, which is what this is. This needs to be made within at the most 4 minutes. If you're if you're having those sort of conversations while doing that, it's very hard to come to a reasonable decision because you're just waffling. Like that's what it was. Just feel. I was like, I was listening to it with headphones on, and I was like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I can imagine
it's like watching a kid try to swim.
aye, it's ridiculous. And then for them to come to the wrong decision just makes it more and more bad. Now, Wally says something very interesting here, and this is something that I didn't actually know for a fact. The whole incident with this is, and you can argue whether it's a foul or not. I think Wally says it's not a foul.
It wasn't a foul for him.
But the attacking phase of play should start at the goal kick, so the Hearts player's offside.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that not? I can understand now why Derek McInnes is getting an apology once I hear that. Why is that not noticed by senior officials in a high pressure situation like a Scottish Premiership game? How did they not know that?
There's absolutely no excuse for that. Absolutely. Is it? I'm not going to try and say. Is it Kabung?
Cabangu, yeah, Cabangu,
Bangu,
he's off.
Brilliant player. He's obviously doing really, really well for Hearts. He's in an offside position, coming back. He then nudges the Kilmarnock player who's attempting to play ball. So first of all, the first offence is he's offside, and then he's gaining an advantage to be in that position. He then fouls the Kilmarnock player.
Do you think it's a foul?
I think it's a foul.
Yeah.
I know Willie said it wasn't, but for me, why are you jumping at the back? Why are you nudging somebody in the back?
Yeah.
People might, Hearts fans will probably, my phone will lighten up soon. Hearts fans will hate me for it, but yeah, I thought it was a foul. I thought it was a clear and obvious foul. But he's came back from an offside position.
Yeah.
The assistant referee has got to be picking that up. And then he's the one that goes on to score the goal. So it's like a double done, isn't it? Or a triple done.
There's
offside,
a lot happens. There's a lot happens after the offside, but the fact is, as I say, we've talked about the communication, but the fact is that where do they think the attacking phase of play started to not make that offside decision? That's the thing I'm struggling to wrap my head around.
I know Willie says it comes from the goalkeeper. He's probably right because that's when the ball then travels three quarters of the length of the pitch. So Kabungu comes back to make himself onside, but he was never onside.
So they're basically saying that that's not offside, and then the attacking phase of play starts from Kabang. Is it Kabangu's knock on?
Yeah,
releases. I can't remember who. I think is it Penrice.
I think it's in the left hand side,
and it's obviously put in. Like for me, that's like that shouldn't happen. That's horrendous.
That's kids football stuff.
And I think overall, just as I say, the kind of one conclusion I had from that is the communication's atrocious. Wally's right, I think, in saying that the attacking phase of play comes from the goal kick, therefore the goal shouldn't stand. Therefore, an apology's not enough here.
But how many apologies has Derek had this year? Because he's clearly stated.
These are amateur mistakes. These are mistakes that shouldn't happen at this level.
Absolutely, it's entirely wrong. And I know Steve and I, obviously yourself, Scott, we want to back up the referees as much as we can.
Definitely.
But you can't hide from the obvious.
The next one, this is the one that I am probably out of them all most interested to see where you stand with it. It was a St Mirren St Johnstone game. Now, we can kind of analyse the Dundee Rangers incident with Clinton Ciala and Simon Murray into this as well, because they're both very similar in terms of the phrase of words that are used. This is obviously not given as a penalty because there is, as the ref says, minimal contact. Willie Collum has said this is a penalty, and he says VAR have some doubts and go looking for the minimal contact to back up the referee. This is a problem. This is a massive problem with that phrase, minimal contact.
Who's there to describe what's minimal and
correct.
Maximum?
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking you would say, because minimal contact basically to me means, and the reason that the Rangers won, and people say, oh, he's not saying that's a penalty because of who it is. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, with the Rangers one and the Dundee player, he doesn't they're both going for the ball, and there's not a lot of contact. There's a small degree of contact, but it's not enough to take Simon Murray down. Whereas in this one, I think the St Mirren player puts the St Johnstone player off his balancing act to try and get the ball or do what he's going to do with the ball. Therefore, this is a penalty for me. And Willie Collum agrees with that. But it's the minimal contact phrase that is annoying me. The minimal contact phrase is going to be used again at some point, and this is going to open a can of worms, because minimal contact to me means contact below the threshold for what should be a penalty. So we're going to hear this all the time now about certain incidents because it's already been put out there by a referee.
Right. So if you look at minimal contact, how much contact is there at corners, free kicks, etc.?
Yes.
Now, I personally don't think the Celtic penalty against Dundee midweek, that wasn't a penalty for me. It was just negligible. They were all tussling. That's what you're going to have. Football's a contact sport.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have. If you go to the Dundee Rangers game, was it Enciala? I think it was the centre half, and Simon Murray. He's trodden his foot. Right. I know people are saying that's a penalty kick. Both players have got their eyes on the ball. They're both looking at where the ball's coming in from. They're going to come into contact. Right. So I'm perfectly happy that wasn't a penalty.
I don't think anything gets mentioned to that if Rangers don't go up the park and score.
Yes, exactly. It was the outcome that came from it. It was the outcome that came from it. But listen, they still had to travel 100 yards up the pitch to score the goal. So Dundee have had perfectly ample opportunity to defend it, and perfectly ample time to get them, because it was only one player against one player. You've still got another 9 players outfield that can affect the game. With regards to the St Mirren one, I'm probably going to speak this with black and white glasses on. It was a penalty, because when you look at it, the ball doesn't deviate from its direction, and the St Johnstone player comes across him, makes contact with the player's foot, and the ball keeps going the same trajectory, the same path. It's a clear penalty kick. I don't understand why VAR never picked that up.
Wally says, though, that the referee needs to be careful in his phrase of words. That, to me, is again what the kind of conclusion for this incident is.
That's a buyout.
That's potentially saying, right, don't say minimal contact because you're going to open us up down the line.
Yep.
But there's not a threshold for what the contact is. Therefore, what is minimal contact? Like, why are they saying that? It's not just a made-up word.
No, let's go back to the very first game that we spoke about in Triantis. Are you saying that's maximum contact?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that was a perfectly good challenge.
I just think the communication, to be fair, between them is quite good. It's not like the last one where it's just like nonsense and rabbling. It's slow, it's calm, it's composed. I think the VAR is trying to back up the referee in this. I think Willie's right. I think he is going to look for stuff to try and back up the referee.
Yeah, he's trying to support him. Yeah.
Which again, I'm okay with if you come to the right agreement, which I don't think they do here. But when they say the phrase minimal contact, you're basically just it's a byword. It's given. That's all you hear from this now. Minimal contact. It's just an unnecessary thing. And then the last one, before we kind of wrap up, the last one that they talk about is the situation with the Kilmarnock Dundee United goal. Kilmarnock score from the. It's basically a cross into the box. The Kilmarnock player goes up to head it. The Dundee United player's going for the ball. Minimal contact is probably another byword here for this because it is used again. The one thing that he does say in this, and he's asked Gordon Duncan, who I think is excellent in this, by the way, I will just say that. I think Gordon Duncan is outstanding the way he asks these questions. Like, he's so good at covering everything. I think he probably looks at it from a fan's perspective, which I like to think we do. I think we look at it like...
I think Gordon Duncan's a very, very good host.
I think he's very good in this, by the way. And the one thing he asks about, and I'd imagine there's a wee bit of kind of dubiety here because obviously Gordon Duncan's Motherwell inclined, and this obviously was relating to the Motherwell Rangers game. He asked it in comparison to the Jack Butland incident where a goal wasn't given And Willie Collum says the difference between this and the Butland incident is the Butland one was a dead ball and he never touches the ball, whereas there's not enough contact to be a foul. And this one, he says the reason this isn't a foul is because there's not enough contact.
Rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
It's just
what's the difference between a ball coming from a dead ball situation?
I don't get why that was brought up.
In a live situation. The Kilmarnock goal against Dundee United, absolutely fine.
Yeah, no problem with that at all.
No problem at all. Marley Watkins has made a very fair challenge. Is it Walton who was the Dundee United
Jack
goalkeeper?
Walton, yeah.
Jack Walton. They've both been up for it. Walton's lost the ball. Marley Watkins won it. Absolute goal. But how can you differentiate against a ball that's still and a ball that's moving?
Yeah.
No, you can only give decisions on the instance that you see. It doesn't matter where it came from. What are you going to say? Kick off. A striker plays the ball back to the goalkeeper and it goes into the goal. Or well, nobody was challenging for him. Or a defender puts it back in for 18 yards and passes it back to the goalkeeper. There is no difference. I actually think Willie's clutching at straws there. I
think I don't really get why he brings up one's a dead ball, one isn't. It's an alive ball in an attacking phase of play. It should make a difference.
The game's on.
Doesn't matter. Shouldn't matter. It's that thing though, and again, I kind of give Willie the benefit of the doubt here, and people that have listened to the podcast over the years have known that I'm not the biggest Willie Collum fan, but you do have to give him a bit of praise for coming out every month and basically just getting questioned about his underlings, as we call them, making decisions. He will call them out. He's pretty brutal towards a couple of them here, but with this one, like I think he kind of doesn't know really what to do. He doesn't really know who's to blame. He doesn't really know. I think he's happy with it being a goal, but he also brings up an incident that's quite similar, but then he says it's not similar. It's like, why you brought that up at all then? Just
he didn't need to bring it up at all.
Gordon Duncan brings it up, I get that, but all he has to say is it's not really the same incident and move on, as opposed to trying to just explain something that isn't really making sense. Like, I don't think he needs to go into this gobbledygook of one's coming from a dead ball, one isn't. It doesn't matter. It's an attacking phase of play. The ball's in play. Yeah. It shouldn't matter where it's come from. What do we think of this one? Because I think this one, I've watched them all. I probably haven't watched the ones before this with as much intent because I've not been doing this show. But the one conclusion I've got from this is that I don't think we're any further forward in terms. Like, I think some of the communication is good, but I think at times it feels a bit shambolic what's going on in a VAR room, because you've got a VAR, you've got an assistant VAR, and you've obviously got the referee, the replay operator, who's obviously probably got an important role. They do have an important role because they're
the ones who do the clips. Together. Yeah,
you've got three voices in there. Now, obviously, the replay operator probably shouldn't or doesn't have an opinion on it. Then you've got a referee who's obviously dealing with his own nonsense in the background as well, with players coming at him, and you can hear that in the background. Like, to me, it's just so chaotic. But how do you come to a reasonable decision in these cases?
You've also got a referee observer.
A referee observer there as well, yeah. Like,
there's
just a lot of voices and not enough kind of clarity and cohesion for me. I think it's the one thing I'll take from this.
Again, I'll go back to when it was first introduced. I don't think that the Scottish FA tested it enough, tried it enough, trained it enough. There's too many voices talking over one another, too many opinions. That the main communication should be between the VAR and the referee on the pitch. Yes, I know you can say, right, I want to look that back. There's got to be a protocol. And listen, I can guarantee you, Willie Collum and the Scottish FA will come out and say, no, there is a protocol. This is how we operate it. Well, I'm sorry, we've heard it, and it's absolute dog meat.
The two things as well that I was going to say. The first one, Willie keeps saying a lot, is we are coaching these to the officials. Do you think that's shown? Do you think that is
no?
Like, what are they coaching? What are they? what's the coaching there? Is I think
I
the
don't
answer
know.
because
I don't know.
they're making the same decisions. The other thing that I've seen here, there's a comment in our video and there's a comment in the VAR review. It's the same person actually. They say, why don't every month they compare the incidents and ask Willie to explain why two incidents are exactly the same with different outcomes? There's two ways of looking at that. If they did that, it would probably be about 4 hours long.
Yeah.
Because Willie says himself, no two incidents are the same. But you are seeing the same level of incidents have different outcomes. So,
which again is the inconsistency
yes,
of,
like
and
all we're
that's what you're
asking for
going
is
to have.
consistency. Yeah,
That's what you're going to have. You're going to have that. As long as humans are involved, you and I could go and look at the same incident as we do, and you could have one opinion, I could have the other. It's not to
yeah,
say you're right or I'm wrong or vice versa. But what you would like to think is at this level of Scottish football and this level of refereeing, you're going to get more right than you're going to get wrong.
yeah.
But I don't see the consistency, and I don't think it's a benefit to Scottish football at this moment in time.
You obviously like know Willie reasonably, and like when he does this, like are you admiring him for coming out in this position, or is he at times not helping himself?
It's probably quite a difficult one to answer. I've not spoken to Willie for a long number of years, since I left football, which is what, 10 years. I always got on well with him. I had no problem with him, working with him. I thought he was always very, very professional. I think his intention is very good.
Yeah,
I actually think he's just jumped on Howard Webb's thing that he wants to do with Sky. I think his intention is good to come out and try and explain it. Do I think he's the best at explaining it? No.
do you think there could be somebody else nominated by Willie to do this?
I think
Because I
you're
know
going
my like I'm asking that question, but I know it would be why is Willie not why is Willie not doing it himself?
no, because
That's
Willie has to do it himself because he's the figurehead.
yeah,
He's the figurehead. He has to come out. It's like you and your job and my job.
yeah.
I'm the person that has to come out and be responsible for my department. So I think it only has to be Willie. The only other person could do it is the head of the referee committee, and that's Willie Young. And he won't do that. He won't put himself. But Willie, if this is the road that he wants to go down, and he wants to have this transparency and have everything in total clearness, and this is what we're doing and stuff, that's his baby. So it can only be Willie that does it. I think Willie, he's very articulate and listening.
Yeah, he's well spoken. Yeah,
He's a very, very clever man.
Yeah,
And I know him through my educational work as well. I just think that he has to realise what he's working with and what his constraints are and get his points across. It's like MD, it's his first year in the job. So we've got to give him that opportunity to put his imprint on it. I think he has to a certain extent because, let's be honest, the Scottish FA referee department is now far more open than it's ever
Oh
been.
yeah. Like you aren't getting that's that. But again, like I think one of the big incidents last year was not being able to hear the VR audio of a game Willie did. We don't have that anymore because we've got it. It does take a bit of time. Obviously, if there's a game just now, we don't hear it until a month later, which again is probably not ideal, but I'm okay with it because we get it eventually. But we aren't getting this last season. Like we are,
No.
it is a bit better that we're getting these sort of communications. As I say, I think it's really well done. I think Gordon Duncan deserves a lot of credit for asking the questions. I don't think he's like given a script and you need to ask this, don't ask this. I don't think that's the case because he asks questions that, as we see, I think Willie gets caught up in a couple because they are questions that aren't fed to him. I think that's a good thing. I think overall, though, just a bit more. Like with the KMI panel, they basically said it's nothing to do with, as they've said, and again in that video, the appeals process is nothing to do with the SFA either, or nothing to do with Willie. Like, I'm all for a wee bit of an independent, a bit of another observation. I think wouldn't be a bad thing to maybe just say this because, like, we're having the discussions. We've disagreed with quite a lot Willie said, but we've also taken into account a few things that he said, and I'm like, right, you've probably explained that as well as you can. So
I think the biggest thing for us, and I'm saying us, the Royalists, Scott, Steve, and I think the biggest thing that has to come out is the KMI panel have no influence on the Scottish FA, is so we're told.
Yeah.
So why doesn't the KMI panel be published? Now you don't need to say that it's Scott McPike, Des Roach, Steve Conroy who are on the KMI panel this week. The thing that came out this week was they have a lack of experience of the laws of the game.
Yeah.
Why is there no referee there?
Yeah.
So I think the Scottish FA and this KMI panel should put out, this is a bank of 20, 25 guys, right? Name them so we know that it's Joe Bloggs, chairman of Arbroath, Steve Conroy, ex-category 1 referee, Scott McPike, ex-Partick Thistle player. See who they are, so you know who the experience is. But these guys are making judgments on something they don't actually know.
And getting protected,
then Willie has to then
getting
Willie
protected
then has to,
by anonymity when they're making. Look, the one thing that I've actually heard somebody on the KMI panel say this to me. Who said we don't have an impact, we're just observing the decision. I'm like, that's fine, but your voice anonymously
it carries a weight.
Is carrying a weight because this thing's been brought in. You're added to the panel. We don't know who you are officially, and then but we're getting told that you've got a big say in this. You're observing other people. I'm with you. I don't necessarily think you have to name them. I think you have to explain where they come from because some of the names I've heard on it shouldn't be nowhere near it. Should be nowhere near that level of power.
Yeah, we've done that. We've said that.
I just think there's way more can be done here, and I think we're doing the right thing. I think we're kind of bringing up things. I think analysing things like this are giving a different voice. That I think people that I don't get this thing in social media where Willie Collum said it, therefore this argument's closed. That's not right for me.
No, absolutely not.
I don't get that. I've seen that a few regarding the Alistair Johnson incident. I've seen a couple of people say that. I don't get where that comes from. Where one person who was a referee last season, who I know for a fact had a lot of these situations go against him as well, and his way of dealing with this was called out on several occasions by the same fan base. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
This. We're asking for a bit of debate. We're asking for a bit of consistency, but we're also allowed to stick to our decisions, as referees have as well. I think there's some things that need to be called out. I think there's this thing of you can go unpunished for making game-changing decisions wrong week after week. I think has to be brought up.
And that's where we hope that what Willie said at the start of the year, you can't have a player making 3, 4, 5 games having errors. They need to take a wee step out. It's the same for referees, same for anybody. And nobody would have any. Listen, referees are not going to get everything right every time, 100%. That is just a complete fallacy. But what we want is we want to support our referees. We want to give every referee that's on that field of play, whether it's the Premier League, first, second, third, Championship, lower league, we want to support them every time. But you've got to have direction from above. And sometimes it's maybe just not the way it should be.
Well, we are going to wrap up there. We will be back next week. We'll have obviously more. I think the league obviously goes back to normal next week, so we'll have a bit more decisions to talk about from the weekend. But Des, all it's left to me to do, mates. Thank you as always. It's been a pleasure.
No problem at all, Scott.
And we will be back next week.
It's not a chore.
Thank you very much.